Bueno, estamos todos y todas, ¿no? Buenas tardes. Tenéis mejor.
Everyone, I can see you look better. And yeah, some of you have been in the sun. So we are going to start this afternoon session with Carlos Romero keynote speech. Well, I've just been assigned to do the introduction. I can only introduce Carlos Romero from the personal point of view. I discovered Frascal when we were organizing a very singular activity. At the time, we didn't talk about those things in which they've become masters. Was it 2017? Was it? You know, design has a function in the development of public administrations, something that goes beyond being a communication instrument for the users of public administrations, and that is the traditional role of design as graphic design and communication design. And we tried to go beyond that concept and its limitations within the Ministry of Science and Innovation, discussing about the function, the role of design in procedures, in processes, in the fact that administrations are efficient, in the users being satisfied through the communication by administrations, but also because they feel their needs are covered. That was something that was starting to be known, and it was quite bizarre. And that's how we discovered Frascal. They were those bizarre people at the time. Please use the microphone. Yes, can you hear us? Yes. Thank you so much for all the participants here, and also taking into account the wonderful weather, because I came from Aragon. Javier has introduced me. Frascal Strategy is our company, and it works in order to transform public companies in the field of health. So let's talk about the real topic now. So I saw the name of the conference, Design and Complexity, and then I thought, what is the most complex thing I've ever lived in my life? Well, being a father. Also the best thing, but the most complex thing in any case. So those are the kind of difficult things we face, having a baby, but also being a baby. That must be quite complex. And like going or choosing your career, looking for a job, marry someone and marry someone, be sick, say goodbye, design your goodbye, decide to go and live on your own, things like that. And when you have a baby, there are many things you don't know what to do. And well, also you have to go to the civil registry. You also need to ask for your parent leave, and then you have to register your baby in the municipality, and so on. There are many moments in your life when you have to introduce great important changes, and public administration will always be there. So the key moments in your life and public administration are interconnected, and that's the way it should be. There are also some private entities, but public administrations have a fundamental role in those key life-changing moments. So you're going through a complex moment because you're going to live on your own, and it's the first time you have your own home, and you have to, for example, hire electricity supply company, for example, and things like that. And then you have many other things that make our life difficult. I've seen that there are many young people here, and I don't know if you've seen that this Obelix story when they have to face bureaucracy, and where they have to go up and down to one office to another office, and this is what we have in our collective imaginary, a very complex relationship with bureaucracy and public administration. So public services are complex by themselves, therefore, so we have the complexity of those life-changing moments or vital, important life moments and the complexity of public services. Then we have an enormous complexity challenge, and a challenge in terms of design. So we could design things during 7 different lives, because we can continue designing our moments of relationship with the public administrations. So here you see some of the members of our team. We are a medium-sized company, a design company, typical one, and I want you to look at that wall at the back. We have those posters since 2016, no changes. And for us, this is our Philippe Petit. I don't know if you know him. And he said that he saw the World Trade Center towers on magazine. He saw a picture and he said that he wanted to cross from one to the other on a tightrope. And I'm also a professor in university, and I was working with the students about how the British government was transforming administrations and transforming the services. Well, that's from when I was at university, and these are from the British government. You are not your user. So these posters are for civil servants, and then the other one, don't look at the details, look at the big picture. And then in the middle, from a film from my generation that says, I want to believe. So this is our dream. So we have this metaphor on our wall, and this is what we want to achieve. And well, as Javier said, culture has changed a lot, and now at least I can tell you of many cases of the regional government in Aragon, but also from the central government, and also many cases from other regions. So how do we design practitioners see the public administration? Well, the first thing we can see is language. Like any other citizen, that's our first contact. It is not the same language that we use, and the logic in the public administration is that of procedure. So it's like a plant, in fact. You have people looking at different files, looking at data, and although some of them work with the public, many of them are working indoors in the back office. And then the procedure is the logic, not that of serving the citizens. The administration has a definition for service, and that definition is different from the private sector. And then they have what they call administrative procedures. And then the times, deadlines in the administration are long but short. So everything is very slow when you work with them. So they come up to us and they say, okay, we want this project in 3 months' time. And then I always say, well, you know, the problem is not going to come from me, but from you, because when we want to have a meeting with you, you're never available, and so on. So it's long in terms of time, but at the same time it's quite short, because as you know, every 4 years there are elections. And what does that mean? It means that you don't have 2 years to design something. In the first year, they just arrive into the new jobs. Then you have 2 years to work, and then for the last year, they don't want to change anything because they are afraid they won't be elected again. Another characteristic in the field of administration is that we're dealing with a lot of people. It's like designing for the big, the general public, because you're not working for a specific target, but for all sorts of people with many diversities, and also you have to deal with the different interests of different departments, general directions or directorates, departments, and so on. Yes, the people in the public administration have a goodwill and they want to give us the best, but they cannot always do it, and that's where we want to try and make a contribution. So today I'd like to share some cases, projects related to those vital moments, those life-changing moments, also some lessons learned and some questions that I wish sometime will come new projects. Methodology, well, of course, you are all in the design world, so you know things such as people-centered and things like that. Very briefly, this is how we work with the administrations. We research the problem, co-create, assess, and then we have cycles of implementation and continuous enhancement. So currently, in the regional government, they know design is very important, and they say this is the methodology that we are going to use in services in the regional administration. So these ideas of the design thinking, people-oriented design and things like that, they consider all those principles as their own. So these life-changing moments or moments of vital importance in the life of people. Well, they are important for the people, but how can we link this to the public administration? So here we're talking about things that most people will experience sometime in their lives. Here, having a baby, perhaps not everyone will have a baby, but I'm talking about in general events that will happen to most people throughout their lives, and also then you are going to have a contact with the state government or the police or the municipality, different levels of at the administration with no permeability, no dialogue in between them. They work in silos, and we don't care if it's the state government or the provincial government. We just want to have our leave or to have our baby in the civil registry. So here we have different levels of service provision too. So there are things related to information, procedures, and services themselves. Here, for example, you have the planning of the pregnancy, if it exists, because sometimes it does not exist, then the pregnancy, birth, the procedures after birth, the post-birth period, and then what happens between the first month and the 6 months after the birth. So we have the municipality, the health center, the hospital, and many different public administrations that are involved. And when you get the baby, you don't get a checklist with everything that you have to do. These are things that you will discover little by little as you go. I won't go into the design methodologies about the strategic design or user experience design, but also I'd like to refer to what was mentioned before lunch, the iceberg and the citizens and the administration and everything that's below, and how we need to work on both sides. Because when we're talking about the design in public services, we're thinking perhaps about the whole of the hospital that will guide us, and that's the visible part, and of course it's very important, but as designers there are many things you can do in the internal processes of the administration, and this can have a really big impact on the top of the iceberg. I'm going to tell you about an anecdote which is a bit not that good. In the tax authorities in a region, they had a software, and if there was a debt of 10 euros, then there was a notification about this. And according to the law, the debt exists when you have a debt of 6 euros, not 10. And this implied a lot of problems. And it's really very simple, but it is important to define those thresholds, for example. Let's see specific cases. So birth, for example. There are many things that we could discuss about this. There are many things that can be done for parents to understand what they are going to be facing. And I'm going to share this very simple case of design in a graphic element. On the left and the right you have the redesign. On the left you have the form for the civil registry that is available in the hospitals. I don't know how many thousands of people are born per day in Spain, But I don't know, this form, it dates from the 40s or the 50s or things like that. And some of the words we have is marked with dash. We refer to fathers and mothers in a very complex wording. And I did it when my baby was born, but I also helped an immigrant who had to fill it in and had no idea about how to fill it in. This is a form that will be filled in by many different people. And how can we change this document so it is more accessible? An anecdote concerning this project that we developed with a hospital, a mother and child hospital. Well, they were talking about the people who said to us, well, we have interviews, but then we don't have time, and my boss is saying that we're always in a hurry, and we thought that here we had to receive information from the mothers, and we had a question, which was something like this. What were the the key moments during the first 3 days since your baby was born? This question was sent through WhatsApp groups, and we asked for audio messages of up to 3 minutes maximum to tell about their experiences. And we received a lot of things, and it was real gold what we received, because this was very emotionally concentrated. So if you don't have resources, you have to find ways of doing this, like we did in this case with the WhatsApp question. And of course, if you don't have a budget, you will have to be innovative in your research. Here we have another case for the minors protection services. So here are families where there is violence, gender violence or drug addictions, mental health problems. In any case, families facing difficult moments. And then one day they receive a notification, a communication informing them that their child is going to be taken to the child protection services. So this is a communication moment that should be transformed into something that is clear, a clear communication, and where we can also express that this is going to be for the well-being of the child and also of the family. And the idea here is not taking the child forever from their family, but only during a period of time so that the family can get together again. So we worked on the letter, we worked on testing the understanding of the letter with different families, and the process became tangible. And we prepared 2 different booklets, one for the families, one for the children, also for them to use as a journal, so that they could write down their experience in this service. The workers, the people who do these are social workers, and one of them said, well, there are 6 different teams, social intervention, and we each work differently. And we thought that this was not a good idea, that we had to identify best practices and actually replicate them in the other teams. So processes should be open and transparent, so that everyone also could identify what was best, and all of them standardize their work. Here, this is a problem that must probably also the case in Andalusia. So each different hospital will have a specific website. Then the surgeon's ward will have a specific website too, or blog, and then a doctor will have an Instagram channel, and very different media. In the Mayo clinic, there's information translated into Spanish, and I think it's very interesting. So in any case, this is a good reference. And the ministry wanted to offer templates to the hospitals so that we could reduce costs, because all hospitals will be working the same framework, under the same framework, and also have very unified website, because no one really wants to know about who is the head of the surgeons department. But, for example, there should be information more about what itinerary to follow to reach the hospital. So, what about this? Well, these are projects that I'd like to do if I ever have the opportunity. How could we help families to enjoy significant summers that will be compatible with the labor market and the current society? I think about my summers in the village with my grandparents, and now when we work throughout the summer, how can we transform societies and cities so that we can enjoy those significant summers that we lived in the 80s, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 90s? Here we have something different. This is a website from the health services in Aragon, and here we want to sort of demedicalize health. So in general, hospital, well, for us, health is the hospital, white gowns, and we forget about the importance of having social net relationships, also well-being, physical activity, and so on. And as web designers, we can focus on that. It's easy to do, but underlying there's a lot of content. What about governance? This is not a community manager. Here we're talking about doctors and nurses, people who are writing and should do this in a coordinated way, in an organized way. So when we look at projects, sometimes we only look at the surface of that, and then as designers we discover there's a lot we can do in lower layers. So we continue. So we have babies, they grow up and they become teenagers, and nowadays we've identified a problem of solitude among teenagers. And this was a project we carried out in Madrid, and I didn't really know much about this. Designers, when we get into a project, we get the opportunity to learn a lot about different lives, so different worlds. That's like being an actor and playing a role. So in general, we think that people who are lonely are the elderly. But then you discover that in fact in our society, those who are deeply suffering from loneliness are young people, teenagers. And here we identified that there are things that have been done in a repeated way. Here there are people from universities, from the health sector, from the neighborhood, from social workers, all the people that have started working with teenagers. And when we started with the working groups, I thought at the beginning, this is going to be really difficult to carry out because people will forget about the project, and because there were so many people in these meetings every 2 days. And in this sense, designers have the role of being there to guide them, show them tools, help them achieve consensus. And this was a great success. At the end of the project, we were all there sharing it. And what we did was that we created a community. This is the best solution against loneliness. So we had to connect resources and change the approach to the problem, because we're fighting against desired loneliness. We need to change the way we talk about this, the storytelling here. We have to reach that person who is feeling lonely. And at the end of the project, well, 20 years ago, I was designing things like this, but then sometimes many of the projects didn't come to become a reality, and then some of them changed a lot. So you start designing something, and in the end, it might be something different, or perhaps it will never be implemented. And in the working group for teenagers, I wanted to have a commitment from them. Sometimes we can have a meal all together when everyone brings a dish, and I told them that to say goodbye, I wanted them to commit to do something about this project to make sure that it will become a reality. And they each said what they were going to offer so that the project would become a reality. I started talking about the young people, but I'm really worried about how to create more positive relations in the digital world. And the teenagers, you heard lately that we're talking about pornography and their impact among young people and their mental health, and I really think there are many things to be done in this field. So this teenager will grow up and will end up going to live on his her own. And when you go to live on your own, you might buy an apartment or have an inheritance. How can we inform the person about all those notifications, and how can we prepare that person to living alone, about going to the supermarket and doing the washing machine and things like that? I don't know if any of you received that book by 1080 Recipes by Ortega. That was the book that we got when we left home because we needed to learn how to cook. So that's for the older generations, I see. So in this project here on the left, you can see those life-changing moments.
Es un espacio dentro de la web de gobierno que vamos a hacer
a section in the website of the government where we are going to have information about those specific moments. When we become of age, when we go to live on our own, when we start having a family and so on. So there they can find information about what it means to live in your own, rent an apartment, buy an apartment, doing different things. And this is the website in the government. But then we cannot control what other administrations are doing. So what we do is that we have links to the other administrations in which we can have no influence. So okay, so you go to live on your own, and it would be great for you to have a job, right? Lleida is a city with a lot of immigrants, and many of them work in agriculture with fruits, and this is the Institute for Employment that wants to help them become digitalized. And yeah, we were discussing that in fact in the next few years, for whatever job, you will have to know things about digitization, because we're looking for cooks, but they will have to enter data in traceability software. And this was difficult to convey. For example, for barrow boys, they will also need to introduce information. So how can we explain that to people so that they understand that these digital skills will be required for all sorts of jobs? So we explained that they had to go to the streets. This should be like agents from the employment office. And in fact, it should be people from the neighborhood so that the people would trust them and create training itineraries for them. So how could we create profiles for professional careers looking beyond university? Because perhaps, we think about someone who studies veterinary and ends up having a clinic for small pets, but then in the end that person will do something differently. A few years ago, I would have never imagined that I would end up working for public administration. So how can we open up the discussion when you're considering about the opportunities? Because we may think that the university fabric in fact, we see that
Bueno,
in
este proyecto de gobierno que
university
estamos muy
students
contentos es este que es
are
MIA,
not very
que
entrepreneurs,
metafóricamente
very
cuando
much
lo
entrepreneurs.
conceptualizamos,
This
que fue en la
project
época
is
pandemia,
MIA, and this was
encerrados en
prepared during the
casa,
pandemic while we
decíamos,
were
yo les decía al
closed
equipo,
at
MIA
home.
tiene que ser
And I told
como
my team,
las cosas que llevas en
MIA
tu
should
cartera
be
siempre.
like
Tu
something that
cartera
you
que llevas
carry
siempre, todas
in
las
your
tarjetas
wallet,
sanitarias,
like
llevas
your
la tarjeta
health
familiar
card,
inglesa,
your
llevas la tarjeta de, no sé, si tienes alguna
big
discapacidad o
family
donación
card,
de sangre,
disability
todo eso tiene
card,
que estar
and
en
MIA
MIA
like
y tiene
that.
que estar todo eso
You
que tienes en
need
tu
to
casa en
have
ese
all that
archivador,
kind of
con
things
esa
in
carpeta que
MIA,
guardas todos los papeles
where
importantes.
you have
Es decir,
all the
todo eso que tenemos en
important
el mundo físico tenía que
papers
estar
in
en el
this
móvil.
folder.
Y además, otra cosa que queríamos hacer
And
con
also
MIA
something
y que
else
tiene
that
esa
we wanted to
vocación
do
es
with
como
MIA
cualquier web de cualquier
was
gobierno
that,
es un
you
monstruo.
know,
La web de IKEA es
government's website is enormous. IKEA's website is really small in comparison. So how can we extract the most important thing from the government's website to have within this product? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we had to work with the tax authorities in Saragossa, in Salamanca, in Aragon. First time you pay taxes, I think many people here have not paid taxes yet. And it is really complex to understand what taxes, why it is important to pay them, to make payment easy, to be able to pay taxes with Visum, for example. And this is something that is a reality in some regions. And this is important also because you feel that you contribute to the community. So how can we also, for example, turn financing or labor training more interesting? Because people don't understand their rights when they have a contract or their holidays, or who pays for them, or what is a gross salary and a net salary. Also, what kind of mortgage they can have access to. Many projects could be carried out there. Here there are many, a very important project that we carried out very recently, and there are different channels here, the online one, the face-to-face one.
Más personas, porque Aragón es un territorio muy disperso.
Because Aragon is a very diverse territory, and this can lead to disadvantages, more complicated disadvantages. We have the problem of attention, or that it's to do with the electronic signature. It's something that the citizens, the people don't know, and it's the key to good relationships with administration. We make laws. Okay, you make laws, and then the people that are able staff is someone who's able to sign on behalf of another person. And in the laws, the design of the service is not displayed. So how could you train this staff? People have to get to know this service. How are you going to prepare the citizen so he's prepared with all the documentation, the days he has to work or to do this service? When we created this service, instead of doing a slide presentation, this is how you have to, the things that you have to do. People don't like receiving orders. What we did is some kind of role play, and this is a civil servant. This is my partner, Javier, and we sort of role play of the difference. You have to do. We have, if something doesn't you don't like, you just play pause and we change it. We are doing it in 2 offices in Huesca and Jaca, 2 villages, 2 cities in Aragon region. And working in services has always been like putting a lot of emphasis on friendship. Because what is more efficient to do research is really important, who doubts it, but it's far more effective to train teams. people have to integrate these services. They have to interiorize this kind of service. You kind of use this sort of terminology also, which is very specific terminology. And this is something that which is really important to create a productive, fruitful work team. We always have a meeting at the same time of hour and the same day of the week, and we always meet them to find out about users, about what is more useful, to have direct input from them. Okay. So one of the things that have better consequences for government is a design system. I think everyone knows what's a cooperative protocol, how to do things, how to create cards. Well, this is something similar. We have different ingredients, different elements. We always play on these play words. It's like create Lego pieces. We have different things that we need, and with these components, we build on different digital tools. This system has been created with an open-minded and an open perspective, and can integrate other elements throughout time. It's not corporative at all. It's very friendly, useful, that it's not corporative, that because we wanted every administration, that every administration could use it. This is why we choose the colors. When we created this design system, there were people that saying, "Wow, it's kind of vanilla. It's kind of boring. It's like it lacks from experience from the users. Why is it so boring, if you want to use that word?" This is intentionally boring because it's designed for everyone. So if someone has some kind of visual disability, or people of all age, everyone could use it. If you lack from connections, from internet connection, you can also use it. It has to be efficient in the worst scenario possible, in the worst conditions. So it has to be a temporal, every accessible, light, and with this philosophy of being open, as open as it could be, So I wanted to tell the story, how this became, how this started. So these people sort of design strategies to get to product, but it's not a group of people, thinkers, of politicians designing it and trying to convince. We were engaged. To do a software, okay, and from the government or publics. More than 1,500 sports activities, and all of these had to be put into a software and then translated into a website. So when we were creating this software, we did these conceptual mind maps, these conceptual smarts. We were going to build some typography, some colors. So we received this cooperative sort of manual with 2007. Is it okay? Because no many administration had this in 2007. We started to do it for this specific product, but in the end, it's something that it's like a trademark now. It's something that is now become like a trademark in a way. I don't want to extend myself in this government of Navarra regional government of Navarra experience. I don't want to really to target anyone. It's it's a way of working, but it's true that this kind of regional approach, it's very different from the work that people in the UK, the administration work in the UK, in a more centralized way. Here we have like 17 ways of doing things because we have loads of regional governments, and maybe we sometimes we have this digital data, our age people. I wanted to share an anecdote and a story. This people with some people that like the digital break gap is something from that dates back from 20 years, but it's not true. If we if we if we wanted to, maybe last year you go to any conference, everyone is talking about intelligence, artificial intelligence, but everything is changing so fast that the digital gap is something that we have to be constantly working on, because it's we have lifelong learners now. We need to constantly keep learning day by day, and this and we need to devote to people that need more attention, like the previous appointment. How many governments have to work on the previous appointment, and there are problems that we all had to sort out, and we need collaboration for the different regional governments. In the beginning, we talk about how we work with most part of the population. For instance, like in the people that like the adults, we sort of divide people, dividing on how good they are with the digital work. We have people that have digital competence, that they are very used to use digital. Also, immigrants, age people that are not familiar at all with digital tools, or they don't have the means, the digital means to get to it. It's something from anecdote to no, can be anecdote. There's a lot of people that don't have any problems about writing in the mobile phone, but when you're there, you are in a keyboard, and they kind of find the ad, or they kind of find. So our realities are very diverse. This is something that we say. The people say that the things that work, like you have like people from the mass immigrant. They people working with immigrants know that they need to send vocals because they are not able to type. And also, like the young people are very used to using TikTok, but it's not the case of other more older people. So maybe we get ill, like people also get cancer, and lots of people work. We have often worked with oncology services when we have to deal with all the data. So when we knew about all the data, sometimes we feel like quitting because it was so hard. But it's true that there is more and more chronification of the illness, and there is more and more cases of oncology, of cancer disease. But the people that now the oncology experts is growing, because we need more. There are more and more cases, and so there is a problem that we have to face. So one of the things that we did in this project is to create a new role for nurses. There is also the nurse series, like they sort of claim for more competence. They want to broaden their roles, and they have created this sort of protocolized treatment that can be controlled by the nurses. So we save time, and we implemented these because this is very time saving, and we have helped them to sort of remodulate the patient flow, the different reorganization of appointments, also the different spaces of daycare services, or we created a space for patients to spend all the waiting times, the time between appointments. They need like restrooms, like areas where they could just rest. And with this type of projects, we started to collaborate within a European project in order to improve the patient's experience, the patient users. The thing is, we tried, the objective was to collect all the data to make better, to get into a more decision-making process, to be a more informed decision-making process, more adjusted to also have a life expectancy, to be adjusted, because we need to choose. Do you prefer to live with a life expectancy which is a bit uncertain, or do you prefer to choose another thing? No, it's something that we something that we had to deal with. So how could we support the people that are agnostics in the design of their farewell to this world? No, so we have, and it's another project we worked on. I don't know if you ever attended an agnostic funeral. It's difficult because there's a lack from a culture. There's some services that are missing, that we lack from this culture. There are more and more older people. So how are we going to face those last years of our lives? How do we face the transitions to active life, to a more sort of passive life, more like the retired people? So we created the spaces so people wouldn't be cold. Maybe don't have enough money to afford central heating, but I can go to this place which is warm enough. So this is creating a substantial and also healthcare spaces or social services. Okay, I have 4 minutes left. So the situation could be another pathology, people that break their hip, and there is a long recovery time, and they had to be in hospital, and they have to have different relationship with different healthcare staff, the physios, the physiotherapists, the different experts, or the different medical staff that is going to be present, or that is going to relate to the patient. And I think I found out that the design was strong when people, with the staff, understood the different functions and the different people dealing with the patient. It's just they sort of find some empathy of, and they could understand the different role of the people, the staff that was going to intervene. And the other project was on dependency. Again, we get to know we need to assist the people because we can have different degrees of disabilities. We have in Aragon a very old population, and we need to raise awareness on this issue, because when people ask for help, it's already too late. So it's how could we design, and with the help of the design, how could we improve the role of the carer, the people offering help, the people giving the care. So the first contact is important. The first contact is not digital, that it's a real one-to-one appointment or approach. And this photo shows different gatherings that we do weekly. These are all the papers that need to be managed in order to ask for help. So we try to you put it on the table, and we try to find out what can we change about it. In this last 7 years, we designed more than 50 services with loads of people involved, and it's important to see how administrations see us, see the designers. I think they value how we raise awareness and we put sort of find a voice of the citizens, of colleagues. They value the way that we are able to disconnect, how we prototype things, how we sort of simplify all the complexity of services. Also, we sort of they value the way that they work with internal work. I think most people know that the national awards last year was in recognition of the work we do with the Aragon government. So it was like also a support or sort of enhancing and boosting other administrations that want to work this way. So we were kind of resilient and we're resistant. It's time to design 2033, 2043, 2053. It's like, do you want to redefine the future? Well, the things must be redefined by you. It's you that have to think about it. It's like a way of thinking. It's a cathedral way of thinking. If you think of the Sacred Family, it is still on process. It's ongoing, and this is the way we have to think. We have to also sort of reduce expectations. Sometimes we think that we're able of doing everything. I think we cannot solve everything, but it's true that we can help other people to sort out almost any problem. So you have to work about 10,000 days. So you have to be a bit like the Galois people in France and to be resistant and work in this way. Okay, only took 2 more minutes. Thank you very much for your participation, for sharing your experience, very inspiring experience, very useful to those audiences, especially in taking into account they are young. It's very open. It's very important that you sort of change culture in the sector of administration, and this is also offering how value can be created. We are a bit delayed, but we can offer you some time for questions. We would need all the afternoon to ask questions for Carlos, but maybe 1 or 2 questions. We can open the floor. We're offering a prize for the best question. It's Mediterranean cruise on the Mediterranean. Any questions now? No? Okay. I think it was very curious. You talk about oncologists, and my sister is an oncologist, and I wanted to know better about what you talk about exactly about design. About design of experiences or services and the part of oncology. Yes, I didn't have much time to explain. It's about how to improve the oncology patient from the very first moment to the last one. So what happens in the first appointment? How do they tell you the bad news? How ill you are? What do you do when you have to go through different tests? Where you're going to chemotherapy? And how do they organize themselves? How they organize the different appointments, different time. So we had also all the oncology floor remodeled, the different furniture, the different spaces. You have this more material design, and in the other way we have other type of design of more intangible things like what sort of people you have in front of you, what type of patient you are. If you're a person that need to know everything about the oncology, about the illness, or other people don't need to know anything, and it's better to be silent, to wait and go a little by little. So is different layers of applying of service and design or service and patient-based design. Another questions? Another question? Short questions. I understand that many organizations from the public sector they are interested they are getting interested about design. Like design is welcome here. Do you think that in the education sector is equally open to this design?
No preparar a un administrador para entender procesos de diseño o metodologías de diseño, sino preparar a un diseñador
prepare like prepare, for instance, a designer to be familiar with all administration and administration. Well, I can talk about my experience in Zaragoza, in Aragon. Our university has a share with the public service from the city to the municipality. So there is a collaboration and there is a coordination among them. And I also tell the students that there is also a space that is a bit gray and in administration, and they have to be aware of that. And I understand there is a research area and a research field. I think there is not many scientific publications on this issue, and I think there is a long way ahead, and there is a scenario there where maybe an optional subject could be in the curriculum, and they could be in the schools of design. Yeah, maybe in 10 years' time we find this. But okay. So we can applause. We can round of applause.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And now, Ana García, Luis Conde. So our colleagues are from the Superior School of Art of Madrid, and they are going to be moderating this next session in the afternoon. So while they go into the panel here, well, you know that there are two presentations that are pending from this morning, and we are going to distribute them. We will have 4 or 5 before coffee break, and then another 4 or 5. When we thought about having an agenda from 9 to 6, we wanted you to have some time to go for a walk. It will be later today, but perhaps we might be finishing at 6:30 or so on. And I mean, if the presentations are interesting, we can stay longer. We don't have to leave the building before 6. So we are going to give the floor to the different speakers, but I would like to ask them all to limit themselves to 8 minutes, so that we can have some feedback with Diego's moderation. And then the break will be more or less at the half of the afternoon presentations. That might be 5:15 or something like that. We will have a short break, 20 minutes or so, and then we will continue until 6 and 6:30. And there are two guided visits. Friday at 4:30 in Pompidou, 6:30 at the birth home of Picasso. They are free of charge. There are guides available, one for the exhibition in Pompidou on design, and another one that was opened only a couple of days ago, and then another visit to Picasso's birth home. And Saturday morning there is also a guided visit to the Russian Museum under the guidance of the guides of the municipality of the city of Malaga. So those who would be interested, please go to the accreditation table and please let them know the visit you would like to join, because there are 25 vacancies for these guided visits, but we would like to have the complete list today so that we can let the museums know about this. There's also a seminar on the Spanish graphic heritage, Manolo Prieto particularly, and with the participation of practitioners who work in the development of the conservation of heritage. And this seminar is going to start right now, just in case anyone is interested. And then we will continue here with the presentations until the break on the 4th floor for a quick snack, and then we will be back. Thank you.
No, si mueves el ordenador, la liamos. Lo dejamos quieto.
Sí que está sensible.
Mira, aquí y aquí. Olvídate de esta.
Vale.
Oh, espérate. Déjame un segundo. Que lo prepare. Ah, aquí está, mira, los he separado para que no nos liemos. Noemí, Claudia, luego Noemí otra vez. Entonces, de estas, 5 y 4, algo así, ¿vale?
Vale, ok. Nos quedamos en la mesa mientras...
Simplemente la lanzamos, no vamos a utilizar TIN ni nada. ¿Vale? Vamos a cerrar esto y no vamos a utilizar la plataforma. ¿Vale? ¿Ok?
¿Y la escaleta es esa?
Sí, la escaleta es esa. ¿Te la dejo aquí?
Sí.
Te dejo esto aquí. ¿Ok?
Vale. Empieza Noemí y... Bueno, tienes aquí la presentación.
Vale, buenas tardes. Vamos a seguir.
Hello. So we are going to continue now with the different presentations, the pending ones first, and we are going to start with a matter of balance by Noemi Emidi, a design method to explore olfactive stimuli through intermodal signals.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for being here and for the invitation. I'm Noemi Midi from the Politecnico di Torino in Italy, and today I will present you my research, A Matter of Balance, a user-centered design method to enhance the sensorial perception of olfactive stimuli. As I said, I'm a PhD student at the Politecnico, and the preliminary stage of this research was conducted in collaboration between the Università degli Studi di Firenze and the Center for Sensorial Analysis, Centro Studi Assaggiatori, from now CSA. With the aim to design a meta-language for the enhancement of olfactive stimuli. So now I will ask you to take a moment to look at the pictures and concentrate on your perception. So we have some strawberries, a forest with a mushroom, and a regular coffee, espresso. So the question is, what did you just feel? If you perceived the sweet strawberry taste, or the rain smell of the forest, or the toasted coffee aroma, you could potentially be synesthetic. The individual capacity to perceive things may vary from person to person, and humans have a strong inclination toward perceiving things visually, thanks to a billion of neurons that act as a pattern mechanism to perceive things that is essential for our cognitive abilities. So, rather than work individually, our senses are much more powerful when they work together, and creating a unique experience of the external environment. So this is also known as synesthesia. This allows our senses to process external stimuli without breaking them into components and operations, creating a more holistic perception. Our senses constitute our first input from the outside. They could be divided according to their range of action into proximal and distal, and our brain integrate incoming signal from our senses into a single experience that is transduced and interpreted through psychological mechanism to assign a meaning. The Gestalt psychology, with its innovative theories, trigger us to understand the human behavior, not for the capability of human to perceive the to understand the human behavior by the way in which reality is perceived, rather than how reality really is. What reality really is. So it is emphasized the study, the analysis of our feelings, perceptions, intention, motivation, and so on. That means that the sensory perception is strongly dependent on our cultural convention, neurologic, and educational limitation. The sensory analysis is a discipline that uses human as a tool to break down, identify, measure, and objectively evaluate the sensation that arise from our sense organs. It involves transforming complex external experience into reliable data that could highlight meaningful connection. However, according to an interview panel made by different companies' employers, the CSA visual output are often really difficult to be understood and to be read from non-expert stakeholders, so such as consumer and retailers. The research aims to explore the synesthetic possibilities through the data and information visualization design. By combining different disciplines, the design and the neuroscience, in a common language, it could be overpass the human perception limit and activate plurisensoral channel. These case studies explore the creative tension between design and neuroscience by applying different and interdisciplinary approaches. This synesthetic design approach seeks to overcome the criticism of human limitation by creating an holistic and immersive user experience. Whether we are talking about product for tasting or exhibition or maps, this synesthetic approach involves incorporating sensory elements such as texture, sound, music, movement, and colors in an easily accessible and rich multi-level experience. So how we can perceive smell where there is no smell was the research question on my master degree thesis. Here there is the process that I adopted to design a meta-language for the enhancement of sensorial stimuli. First of all, I established a design set by translating data from the test of the CSA, the SBSTAA, and the aromatic families into visual variables. The color palette was categorized by the aromatic families, while the shape dimension were based on the descriptor value. Then I designed various structures to which build the sensorial experience. Here there is an example of the structure that was utilized by the CSA Center, on which I displayed data into an aggregate variable comprehension. So I designed a meta-language that could be used by CSA partners to improve the physical experience of their product, facilitating remote and expert-driven comparison, demonstration, and testing. These maps could highlight the contribution made by each of the product under investigation. In this case, we was talking about spirit drinks. Finding common patterns, contrast, and the right balance. So how we can experience more? By converting those maps into different electronic formats that can be embedded into a document and presentation, I designed a digital joint visualization that allows both amateurs and experts to easily manipulate maps and deeply exploring product sensory profile, and also comparing them with the benchmarks. So the user experience flow was studied to enhance the overall design by providing multiple layers of information, filters, and an intuitive interface. This design-oriented approach enables individuals to identify and appreciate aromas during the tasting experience. The user flow starts by the sensory profile that expresses the aromatic tendency of the taste experience. Then it goes to the aromatic comparison, that is the quantitative descriptive profile that compares different sensory profile of product. And he or she arrived to the hedonic pleasure, so the hedonic tone expressing the degree of pleasantness. I also added extra relevant information, providing the methodologies and the sensorial analysis involved, that added extra flourish for the user experience, enrich its knowledge in a user-friendly way. And so this design-driven experimentation of embedded experience in a digital displays suggests the emerging and prompt the emerging of a new design role, the sensorialist designer, who can combine insight from different disciplines, so the neuroscience and the methodologies of design, to enhance the human sensorial perception. All right. Thank you all for the attention and for the CSA Center for the dataset and the collaboration.
Thank you so much. ¿Alguna pregunta en la sala? ¿Alguien quiere formar alguna cuestión, observación, aporte? Sí, un caballero. Vamos allá.
So all these years, being a millennial, I've been seeing like the differences between the analogic world and the new world, right? So we have now ChatGPT or all the digital changes, but in terms of smells, it seems still very analogic. And how do you see why the industry are not investing in new devices like, you know, like all those futuristic devices like we saw in the past, like, you know, prototypes. Mm-hmm. But it's not a reality anymore. And so how do you think the industry is going this way?
Right. Thank you. Actually, this work was conducted in collaboration with Luigi Odello from the center, and we made some interview to analyze the interest of companies in doing such experimentation. So we collaborate with them to create a dialogue with the provider, so the user, so the consumer. There is a big need to experience in an analog way, and companies are interested, according to the interviews, to design a new way to interact with user by involving them into different way. So in a person-to-person conversation and in a remote experience. So in this way, they could merge analog and digital experience to provide to the user a richer experience. Not only one on the other, but a merge with all of them.
Noemi, un aplauso para agradecerle su intervención. Continuamos en este caso con Carolina Pérez.
So we are going to continue now with Carolina Pérez, and you have the floor.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Carolina.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolina. I am a professor in the Andes University. I come from Colombia. And it is a great pleasure for me to be here today. I'm going to talk to you about this research project, interdisciplinary work between design and engineering. We're working on a material that is coraza de Marañón. I don't know if you've heard of it. This has several names in the world. In the US, it's known as cashew. In Colombia, it's called marañón. And if I'm not wrong, here it is called anacardo, isn't it? It's the cashew nutshell. Colombia is becoming one of the main producers of cashew.
Una de las zonas de Colombia.
So, in one of the regions in my country,
De la capital.
Very far away from the capital city is called Vichada. This territory has very complex conditions from the social and the economic points of view. Vichada means, in our local language from the indigenous community, it means the savanna that becomes a jungle. And it means that we have both ecosystems. This is why this region has a lot of biodiversity, very high biodiversity. The market of anacardo, of cashew, has an upward trend. 3,000 hectares have been planted. And the profitability, the yield is of about 1,000 kilograms per hectare per year. That's the fruit. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's composed of two different parts. Here, the top part, that is the pseudo-fruit. And below, we have the fruit of the cashew that we will eat, the nut. And here below we have, this is only 25% of the nut. So the part we eat is only 25% of the total nut, with the extractive parts and also the nutshell. So here, these are the parts that are discarded. Most of the pseudo fruit is discarded. The only part that is commercialized is the nut. And then we have the nutshell that is protecting the nut, but it ends up being waste. This is one of the pictures from the in-field visits, and here you can see the amount of waste that is generated. This is for us an opportunity, and we want to turn this agro-industry waste into an opportunity for new materials. So we wanted to see how to turn this cashew nutshell into a sub-product in the production chain. So the engineering school and the University of Andes, both of us from Colombia, we got together and we thought about how to design a sustainable material with this waste. For this process, we worked in an interdisciplinary way with about 12 members in the team. So it's quite a big team. There are designers, mechanical engineers, and chemical and food engineers. Interdisciplinary is key, and for that, the concept of community is core. It was present from the beginning of the project, and it will be maintained until the end of it. Our methodology was a joint methodology coming from design and engineering. So the material drivers design. So the material is what we are going to design as a target. And the design, build, test and learn is the methodology that is very similar to design methodologies. So we've got several challenges for engineers and from designers because we have very different backgrounds.
Complicaciones, ¿no? Siempre hay un lost in.
This means that there are always difficulties. We get lost in translation. We think in a convergent, divergent way, and engineers do not think like that. So let's see the kind of things that happen. This is a project for 3 years, and we're already in the second year. And first of all, we wanted to go to the Yale and get to know the people and the community and generate a real context where we could actually understand the opportunities and issues for the community and the region. So in this first stage, we had the first contact between designers and engineers, and we wanted to use the design methodologies that are very empathic and sympathetic and also close to people, and we wanted engineers to get familiarized with these techniques. In a parallel way, we organized an experiment, a material experimentation, and we created different experimentations to try and find the tools that we may have at home, not a specific lab mixer, but a home mixer. And here you have some of the matrix that we used. We were using different starches from the region. We used also bacterial cellulose. This was coming from the pseudo fruit. And we realized that it allows us to generate vinegar, and from that we can actually generate bacterial cellulose. And also this fruit gives us also a fiber content that can allow us to create cardboard, for example. And the collagen that is present, this is a region with 3 rivers where we have also waste from fishery activities. Also, the engineers, in the meantime, were characterizing the nutshell and the oils and the extractive elements from the nutshell. And this led to learnings and lessons for both sides. And we could also merge quantitative and qualitative data coming from the designers and the engineers. So we took samples from the different DIY experiments from design, and we selected the more successful ones that were taken to the lab. And the designers in the field of the engineering, we needed to understand the conditions that existed. And there was an anecdote because at the beginning of the project I thought that in design we advance very quickly and the engineers don't. And when the designers went into the lab to learn with the engineers, we discovered that engineering and lab processes are quite slow. And this is also one of the advantages we got from this interdisciplinary work. The DIY experiments allowed for many powerful interactions to obtain diverse results, and this would allow us to select the tests that were going to be executed, taking into account time and money limitations, and therefore we could focus only on the most successful experiments. So then in the lab we have a lab mixer, not a home mixer, also a grinder and an oven, convection oven, and the engineers could work on this with the appropriate characteristics and well defined with all the specifications. At the end, we got 16 different samples. Some of them came still from DIY experiments, and then the others from the lab processes. And we wanted to work on a co-creation workshop with the community using these samples. Why did we want to do that? We want to make sure the user and the samples would come into direct contact, and also we wanted users to see the perception by the users, and also to understand how to fit this material within the production chain for cashew. So here you can see the sensory scales where we asked people in the region to organize the samples and generate their sensory scales and generate qualitative data. And then in the fifth stage, we took all the results from DIY, from the lab, and also from the co-creation workshop. And then we carried out a second iteration of replicates to come close to a final material. As a conclusion, I'd like to tell you that the MDD method was very important because it allowed us to generate very quickly 60 samples. This is something that the designers offered, and this was very much and well appreciated by engineers. Because in engineering, processes are long. They may require 15 days or a month, while in design we can get lots of samples in just a week. This was one of the big lessons learned thanks to this interdisciplinary work. Secondly, MDD method in conjunction with the DBTL engineering methodology allowed us to have a situation where the engineers were getting prototypes, but not much time is lost. And this also allowed us to obtain qualitative results besides the quantitative ones, and we developed 9 material samples in laboratory conditions. As I said, for us, throughout the project, it was very important to work with the community horizontally throughout the time of duration of the project, because this allows us to generate a design in the context, contextualized. So we are facing the issues the region faces, socially, economically, and environmentally speaking. And we want to consider the materials within that reality. So how to generate this sustainable material, which is a waste in the region, but that can have a circular contribution to the chain. Finally, I'd like to highlight that, as I mentioned, this is a 3-year project, and those are the samples that are already available. And during the 3rd year, we are going to continue closing the gap, bridging the gap, so that we can have a functional material. And we're also working on packaging that is going to be used in all the different stages of the production chain made of this material that we are going to propose, a sort of a basket. And this is the team, engineers and designers. This slide is very important, in fact, because it was essential, in fact, to have an interdisciplinary team. This was the main challenge in the project, to articulate this work, so to have several disciplines and have them all cross-cutting and integrated. We believe this is a long-term process. If we see it now, these type of works will become easier in the future. Thank you so much.
Como les decía, en el receso.
So during the break I can show you the samples. Some of them have been traveling a lot and have visited very many different territories and have been in many different hands, and you will see the impact of time on them, but I'd like to share them with you. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Carolina. Un segundo antes de
Thank you very much. Yes, before you leave, as you mentioned, the integration, collaboration of these two cultures or philosophies is a very complex topic, issue, because engineers and designers think differently, and we have a question from the audience. I have a question. Did you research the original people, the indigenous people, because the pseudo fruit is used in cooking and also as a popular traditional medicine. So that has been so for many years by indigenous populations. And for us, it is not a waste. So well, I come from Brazil, so I find this very strange that you say that.
Sí, de acuerdo, qué bueno que lo mencionas.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, Brazil is one of the main producers too, and also India. With the pseudo fruit is astringent, and this is why the marketing possibilities are not so big. The nut has a high nutritional content, and this is why the nut is sold and not the pseudo fruit, because in Colombia the pseudo fruit is very astringent, and this is why people don't really like it so much. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. And now we are going to continue, and we will give the floor to Teresa Perez Contreras, someone not many people know. Now it's sarcasm. I know you all know him. Professor of the School of Art and Design, San Telmo. And today, Terero, everyone knows you well. So a round of applause for her.
Para que desaparezcan todos esos nervios que en ningún momento existieron, ¿verdad?
No, ¿qué va?
Bueno, pues adelante.
Sobre todo porque tengo que ir muy rápido. Bueno, buenas tardes, me llamo Teresa, Terelo para los alumnos, y voy a hablar de las relaciones entre Japón y Europa a través del diseño gráfico. Si os hablara de Japón, ¿qué imagen os vendría a la cabeza? Si me lo queréis, me lo decís, si no, lo más probable es que sea alguna de estas u otra. Pero siempre pensamos en un país, tenemos imágenes en nuestra mente que a veces vienen por una educación o por un conocimiento o también por los más media que nos dicen, o los medios de comunicación, que es un país. Si os dijera una imagen de diseño gráfico japonés, ¿alguien conoce alguna? Probablemente no. Probablemente os suene, pero no sepáis muy bien quiénes eran los autores, pero sí que parecen como minimal, zen, ¿no? Todo muy relacionado con lo que pensamos que es Japón. Pero Japón también puede jugar con los juegos visuales o también puede tener un caos y una psicodelia. Y seguramente aquí os suenen mucho los pictogramas, pero no sepáis quién los diseñó. Y tanto los emojis como el símbolo de salida o los pictogramas de los Juegos Olímpicos fueron ideados por diseñadores japoneses. Si os pregunto aquí, ¿este diseño es japonés o es europeo? ¿Qué pensaríais? ¿Japonés o europeo? Aquí juego con ventaja porque sois generación joven. Si fueseis de los que trabajabais en los 90, sabríais quiénes son. ¿Vale? Bueno, todo parece muy japonés, pero son diseños hechos por diseñadores europeos, británicos y suizos.
They're British. My work on research, this trend that it was from the 19th in last centuries, it was a movement of postmodernism movement, and we wanted to break with traditional design. And it was a generation that was influenced by music, by computer science, the first computers, the first connections to internet, and they started to generate these types of images. And it's important that graphic designs have been like a vehicle, a means to express identity and aesthetics values throughout history. And when time became, when the world became interconnected, then the role of design, graphic design, was bigger. This wave that everyone is familiar with it's something that Japan has entered the image, the cultural image or the cultural imagery of people, and Japan is striking me like a sort of Japanization. There is different theories of globalization. They that were more Western dominated, and now Asia or Pokemon, Doraemon, or became so popular as McDonald's. So how this love for Japan's is born or is generated? There is several authors that have investigated about this influence of Japan in Western culture. In the 19th century, there was this influence over the Impressionists, that they were highly influenced by the Japanese cultural sumo and this tendency to trend also in the 80s, you have this economic also power that they were gaining an important economic in the economic arena. In the 80s, it was a technological power, and now in social, they've been in the social culture, they've been power. It's true that this is not a coincidence. They started, they have used this sort of soft power to promote their culture. So everything that it's like cool, no? That Japan cool is like fun, like it's a way of promoting the country and the culture. And this is also present in design. And design is also influenced by this popular culture in Japan. The history of design is a recent discipline because some people think that being able to design is important to get to know the local, the international, and the global um, arena. But there are other authors that think that this is not important. The nations are no longer important. That the important thing is that we work in collaboration and generating social transformation, no matter where you are from. This is a history from design, graphic designs, from a different perspective. The author is called Ian Lennon. So the history of graphic design has been told in a very linear way, and the protagonists were always white, heterosexual, and white dominant narrative. But this book talks about the other authors that were not so well known, but they also did things, interesting things. You are designers of a potential market, and anyone can be your client, anyone in the world. So it's important to get to know well the other culture and the other user. It's important to get to know the culture, to mix it with our culture and create different design products. This is what it's has been called intercultural design. So we have to go very quickly over the history of graphic design. It worked very similarly with other cultures. In 20s, it was an imitation of Bauhaus, of Western influence designers. Afterwards, after the war, it was a design based on propaganda, and after the war, they wanted to have some presence in the international arena, and they started to create different events, organized like the World Design uh, event, designer conference, and they get to know each other, and they get to know other designers, and the different also exhibitions, and it's a way of networking and of getting to know different interactions between the Japanese culture and other cultures. So they created a different iconography of different pictograms that included all the designers in the European in the European. It's a little gossip. In the 1960s, in the design conference, two Swiss designers got married with Japanese Swiss designers. It was like the Tinder in that late. So these modern Swiss and Japan designers got married through design. It could be. In the 1980s, the personalities like authorships, the authors individual were important, and then we go to the stage that we are now, that we like, this postmodernism. It was a big crisis, and the stock exchange crisis in the 90s. It was a break. I wanted to break with everything that it was past. It was and also a way that they wanted to do great with the Helvetic and clean designers, and they wanted to do something different from the one things that they had been done in the past. And all these features that are present now, it was it was also the way where the designers could be designed from home. There was electro music, also the MTV, the video game. So we had this generation of designers that decided to use some of them. I don't know if you know it, katakana type typography without any context, without any meaning, and they use also pets, loads of icons that would resemble Japanese, but they lack from context. They imagine Japan as the future, as a future world. There is a trend called Zen Orientalism. It's like defining someone that they are very developed technologically, but not intellectually. It's the Westerns that have to tell them how to do it. It's like the film Blade Runners or the book Neuromancer. It's like imagining a world like Japan, but in the future. There is some authors like Ramasaki that there is a trend in design that there is a recovery for everything. I don't know if you know the Y2K acid, great acid rapids, and they had the same language that they was used in this stage. They recognized that they used this typography without not knowing very much what was about, what it meant. So it was a case of a cultural appropriation, using a culture for our designs, if without knowing if it can be offensive or if it could be. We could talk about colonialism in design. This is something that has been always present. It usually is led by the American designers. This is created. It was created by some Swiss people that traveled to Japan, and is something a typography that have been created, but it is cute. It's offensive because it's a stereotype that is always used to refer to Japan. Another trend is to use theme fashion, is because it reminds us of the future, this typography, and in this case, we have to do a sort of reappropriation or retransformation. It's to get to know better the Eastern world, because it's like campaign that it works. And in the same way, similarly, the Japan also used the Western world images to sell their products. As a conclusion, we have, as designers, we have a responsibility to communicate. We create trends. We determine what is fashionable. So we use things that are not from our culture without any information, without any backgrounds. We are going to create, or we're going to insist on these stereotypes. From the academia, we should sort of explain you better the studies of graphic design, not only led by the Western world, but also the Eastern world. We could also learn from researchers and professors in other cultures, and we could also, before using a resource that it comes from another culture, maybe we could engage, or we could get engaged with people from that culture, specific culture that can explain us better. So the postmodernism, what brought us is that the history of one specific country has become the history of everyone. So it's my conclusion that we can learn from the other culture by knowing it better. Thank you. So that's thank you in Japanese. Any questions that you want to say, that you want to ask Terelu about this interesting topic? Comment, anecdote, praise? Thank you. It was very interesting. I work in advertising, and also I create things to create fashionable trends and to generate a connection. But I've always thought that it's complex to appropriate or to do these references, as we call it in advertising. Sometimes we think I need these codes to communicate. I want your professional and personal opinion. If you don't feel well when you use a specific trend that doesn't come from your culture. I don't design myself. I used to be a designer, and I used to make all these mistakes. I used to use like a cover artist, and after researching, I found out I said to myself, maybe I shouldn't have done it, but it's something. It's true that there should be a balance. If we don't use anything, then we lack from resources. But we have to. Maybe I don't have the means to do it. I don't know how to distribute it, but I think I have to research. Recently, I worked from a Catalan designer. Used this kind of things. They had to do a poster about Greenland, and what she did is ask a school and she would use these designs, these pictures, these paintings from the kids, from the children in the school. So I think we have to generate this type of resources and be creative in our solutions. Big applause of Terelu to say goodbye to her. So we are now going through the half of presentations. We are going to do the last one, who's going to talk about Kika Vida-Pelayo and design for social innovation in the face of humanitarian crisis.
Ahora, muchas gracias. Bueno.
Thank you very much. My name is Kike Vila. I represent the University of Deusto to present this piece of work. The title is quite suggestive, and this work was received an acknowledgement in the Biennial of Design, American Design in Madrid, and I wanted to share with you the most practical aspects of this piece of work. The first question we considered was how to reduce the impact of humanitarian crisis using design, applying design. This was a very ambitious goal, and when I started thinking about this, well, the simple fact of reflecting and thinking about it, well, suddenly, woof, I thought they could be like democratizing design to make sure that objects well designed or tools well designed would reach people in humanitarian situations. And thinking about that made me think of this chair. This is a very popular chair all over the world, and people can sit in these chairs in situations where seating would not be possible. When we look at the data and we look at the evolution of the number of people who are in need, according to the Global Humanitarian Overview 2021 by the United Nations, we see that this is a growing number. A person in need is someone who doesn't have what is required to live, or who is discriminated for different reasons. As you can see, figures are growing, and you can see that up to 2021, we're talking about an enormous amount of people, a really big number of people affected. So, after some droughts in the 80s in Africa, the paradigm changed concerning emergency, what emergency was considered, and this was then studied as something that is a cycle. So we have an emergency event that then this generates the warning, then we have the response to the emergency situation, then we have a recovery, rebuilding stage, and then resilience to prevent and mitigate the next event. And resilience was defined as this reconstruction process between the rebuilding until the new event, new emergency. We analyzed the word emergency that comes from emergence, emerging, and this could mean an opportunity to create something new and even new patterns through design. So we thought about how design could contribute to emergencies. We considered 4 different phases: mitigation, prevention, reaction, and recovery. And in all of them, design could contribute in reducing risks, preventing impacts, diminishing consequences, reducing them, or catalyzing recoveries. And we decided to focus on this 4th pillar. So considering resilient and sustainable, so to design as a driver for a sustainable and resilient recovery, avoiding impacts in the future. Why design and resilience? Because of the prospective responsibility of design when we're facing the most urgent problems. Sometimes the solution is given to a problem which is not the perceived problem and not even the real problem, and even less the future problem. This is why we consider that design should be able to generate a better response to future problems, even those that we cannot know will happen, will take place. So we decided that we needed to consider several criteria for resilience design, and we obtained them through the literature review and an analysis of different principles. So this was a decalogue. It must be a design that should be empathic or sympathetic, humanized, motivated, taking into account the sustainability of ODSs, functional, with this view by Victor Papane, who were talking about the use, the method, the aesthetics, the need, association as a functional complex. So the sustainable aspects, the germinative design, we will talk about that later on more in detail, the autonomy of projects designed within resilience, the systemic adaptative character of the design, and also impartiality. So we have the design thinking methodology, and we modified it where we had a framework stage before we enter the evaluation stage, trying to study what already exists. So to design in a situation of emergency, we need to analyze what is already existing in terms of knowledge, people, and collaboration among people. And then we entered the need-finding stage to identify the most immediate needs in this situation of emergency. We must not forget we're talking about a post-conflict situation, so the direct danger is over. Then we worked on upcycling and a concept that would then become a prototype for the implementation and then evaluation. Later on, and here I'd like to refer to this germinative aspect that I referred to in the decalogue. So we have the scale of design of the Danish Design Center, and here we could apply this to design for resilience. We used a survey to try to analyze the impact that the different design projects could have in relation to resilience in the context of emergency. We refer to the decontextualized design, referring to a design where projects are prepared in alterity, in the otherness. For example, in the case of the earthquake of Morocco, where a design company could offer solutions or prepare solutions from their headquarters, but for that specific earthquake, far away from their offices. Then we have the sponge design, so trying to feel sympathy, to try to design something. So this would require studying very well Moroccan culture and their needs and the most affected regions, but even in spite of that, the design would not be so good for resilience. Then we would go from operational design to strategic design. This is a barrier here. And then we're talking about teaching design. So what if before the earthquake we could try and teach people to use what is already existing so that they can improve their situation? And then further on we have the germinative design, like in Papane's literature, so trying to be able to teach but at the same time create an environment that will germinate, that will lead to native and aware designers. It is a process where we would have a group of people that would be able to teach and would have the tools, a toolbox that would allow them to design but also teach design there. So we continued with this, and then we worked on some mobile workshops that are being designed right now. This has not really been executed yet. And the idea is to have an impact in design teaching in order to apply manual tools, but also digital design tools and other types of tools, so that they can all be applied to a situation, a post-conflict situation. So the idea would be to take a container with the knowledge and the know-how to that emergency context and to be able to actually develop some work of, design, teaching, and resilience. And this is what we did. Thank you.
I've tried to adjust to the timing. Thank you for your great contribution, great interest. You have any questions to Kike regarding this presentation? You can also ask the questions in the break time. We're going to the fourth floor to have a snack, 20 minutes, and we'll be back. Thank you.
Hola, buenas tardes de nuevo. Continuamos con...
Good afternoon. Again, we are going to continue with the next presentations. We're going to start with Noemi again, discussing materials and
deseabilidad social de materias primordiales y descompuestas.
pilot experimental research design on the social desirability of primordial and decomposed material.
And now I will present you my research discussing material. It is a pilot experimental research that focuses on social desirability regarding primordial and decomposed materials. So, as I said before, I'm a PhD student in production management and design at the Politecnico, and my doctoral research focuses on circularity in the material dimension. So this is a part of my doctoral research. So, by raising your hand, how many of you are more confident with fungi and molds? All right. And how many with dung and excrement and other waste? All right, not so bad with fungi. So today we will talk about these resources because we are not talking about waste but resources. So the research focuses on extraordinary material and processes that still face challenging in their commercial usage due to cultural, technical, and aesthetic limitations. By designing a pilot experimental survey, I will test aesthetic and knowledge variables to test the appreciation and the acceptance of such alternative resources. But first, let's take a look at the theoretical background. So our linear model of taking, making, using, and disposing no longer works. And globally, government and many companies from different market sectors are engaged in more restorative and generative economic strategies. They found in the circular economy model a solution framework to eliminate waste and pollutions, circulate product and material at the highest value, and regenerate natural ecosystems. To achieve the SDGs goals by the target date of 2030 and 2050, more efforts need to be focused on the application of eco-design principle to close the loop in resource of materials, in reuse the material resources, and in replacing non-renewable resources by adopting bio-based and low-carbon alternatives. So, in this regard, by considering the entire product life cycle and the circularity of materials through a circular design-oriented perspective, it can be possible to align both natural cycle with industrial processes, so the technosphere with the biosphere. That means that design should embrace the entire product system and stimulate acceptance of new practices among social communities. According to Pellizzari and Genovesi, circular material or neo-material are resources from both the biosphere and the technosphere by involving growing or recycling processes. Alternative processes and new material development often arise from experimental studies and laboratory research, providing fertile ground for scaling up innovations. And through the use of waste and byproducts, it is also emphasizes a shift in perspective, making such practices and materials more reliable, desirable, and attractive. This research explores innovative and sustainable approaches to material design, emphasizing alternatives to reduce environmental impact. The purpose is to shift the perspective and the practice toward more responsible and conscious consumption, fostering a connection between the human-made system and the nature. The following case exemplify this approach. So we have the Bloody Plastic project. They utilize blood as a byproduct of abattoirs to create a bioplastic and made some utensil and tableware, challenging our indifference toward consumption. Made by insect project explore biopolymer from the secretion of insect. This material is well known as shellac, and by combining nature with technology, she 3D printed some conceptual objects. The Breathing Shoes is a project made by the collaboration between the Meat Design Lab, Puma, and the designer Jane Kane that create a leather-like material to enhance the sportwear performances. And finally, the cellular project involves living organisms such as lichens and algae into a fecal tile, which can improve the climatic condition of cities by reducing pollutants and CO2 and providing oxygen while the lichens and the algae grow. So in this current, the research focuses on the previous resources as extraordinary resources, so materials and processes that foster a mindset of appreciation. Despite their contribution to the environment, such materials still face challenges in commercial usage, and in many cases the divergence between unconventional material aesthetic and their intended purpose may lead to resistance or unappreciation in the market. So for that reason, the study tests the hypothesis of visual and knowledge influence in new material appreciation and acceptance. So I designed a multifactorial survey that was a pilot test that was divided into different treatments for both material and processes. The survey was administered to a heterogeneous group of stakeholders in order to capture the correlation between respondents. And I also added an instructional manipulation check to detect the attentiveness of a respondent, and those who failed the test was excluded by the final count for the analysis. So the first treatment is the not manipulated control condition. That did not show any significant influence on the research topics, so the material and the process that were under investigation. Instead, the focus was on individual preference and opinion regarding the use of alternative resources and production processes, and sustainable and environmental friendly practices. The goal was to demonstrate individual interest in alternative solutions to reduce environmental impact. The findings revealed that while alternative resources were viewed as a reliable and sustainable means to contribute to waste reduction, respondents assigned higher influence score to the material aesthetic factors, particularly in the domestic and furniture sectors. Regarding different production processes and their impact on human safety perception, traditional processes like injection molding were viewed as safer on average than the recently optimized alternatives. However, both experimental in vitro and the microbial cultivation were viewed safe by respondents. And finally, concerning the safety of recycling practices, mechanical recycling greatly exceeded the alternative chemical processes. The first experimental treatment focused on excrement-based material, testing in which visible aspect of raw resources, image, name, and caption, can affect the individual perception and the acceptance of their production and application. Through a present-absence stimuli manipulation, the first group, the MT, exposed a respondent to a single photo of a product made by excrement without any textual information added. The second treatment, the MT2 group, received similar content but with a clear informative caption describing the material, the process involved, and the benefit from the regeneration of these resources that was repeatedly reported in each question. Both the treatment exposed the respondent to similar questions about, for example, to be in favor of using them in different application and sectors. The second treatment focused on process In particular, it is related to the decomposition process via microbial and mold to test the hypothesis that the visible process of bacteria or fungi acting on agricultural waste affect the acceptance of their output. So we are talking about semi-finished products such as panels or packaging, or the usage for manufacturing processes. The manipulation of the second group, the PT2, goes through a different rate of decomposition process to evaluate at which point the substances move from being conceived as a waste to a semi-finished product. And then participants for both the treatment are asked to be in favor of using them in different market sectors. They are also asked to look at the pictures and rate their perception in terms of availability and pleasureness in support a similar statement of the material treatment. So to conclude, this pilot survey experiment exhibits a great potential to collect reliable data about social and individual perception about extraordinary resources. However, it was administered to a limited number of people, so there is a margin of error that could be addressed by translating the test in English and amplify the target audience. So that's all. Thank you for the attention.
Are there any questions?
Size of the sample? You said it was small. What was the size of the sample, and why use a factorial analysis? You use a multifactorial analysis, right?
Yes.
Why?
Because I participated to a PhD course that was focused on this type of survey, and so I applied the methodology to improve my research by gathering some data, quantitative data for the design analysis, because often our research is a qualitative-based research. So in this way, I can gather more reliable data. However, it was too limited to the number of respondents, so I can improve this research. But I need time to translate everything in English with a current for the questions. I don't know if I... the sample size was 76 or 77 people. So it was really limited because most of the respondents didn't pass the manipulation check, so I excluded them for the analysis. And right.
¿Alguna pregunta más? Pues pasamos.
Thank you.
Ok, pues seguimos con Hernani Alves.
Now, Hernani Alves, Plural Inclusive Futures, a speculative participatory design to heal, empower and reclaim imagination. You can take the floor. Thank you.
As I have prepared this in English, the communication that I'm going to do will be on the plural inclusive futures, like was mentioned, and how speculative design can help communities to heal, to empower, and reclaim imagination. This is part of, this presentation is part of ongoing PhD research, so I'm in the second year, starting the second year. It's within the intersection of critical design and speculative practices, but also with co-design and participatory methods. So as you can see there, it's outside what we consider outside of the classic scope of design, expanding its interested in everything that's beyond the typical commercial design practices. This is not new. A lot of designers in the past have done that. And we believe that that type of work, designers who worked at odds with their times, working outside of industry, criticizing the status quo, expanded our understanding of design right now and expanded new possibilities for designers to work and to create differently. So speculation also works like that. It opens new paths, not just for designers, but opens for society at all. So there's some connections between the futures cone and within the models of diverge and converge, as you can see here. And it's really interesting to see how the expanding of these possibilities and finding new ways outside of the strict path can give us ways to imagine futures when things are bleak and the future seems hopeless, or and to empower things. So speculation, at least the classic speculation, classical examples of the Royal College of Art has had a lot of critiques in the past. So done from designers to designers, not engaging in the conversation, being in museums instead of inspiring the dialogue. Also having this idea of privilege and the dystopias that somehow were represented through violent images represented realities in the global south, for instance. But of course, as I was reading the Junaid Raby's Speculative Everything 2013 book, they talk about this idea of social dreaming, and I can see some parallels with what Liz Sanders and Van Steppers talk about collective dreaming. So they are talking about the same thing, but in slightly different ways about the importance of the designer. Speculative design is part of this critical design analysis by Matt Malpass, where he creates this notion that speculative design, and he categorizes it with adding the futures and the strategic foresight dimension to the critique. So it has to do with technology, with the futures, and how we present that technology. Of course, there are other versions of it, especially associative design, where designers criticize design itself and the process of design that exists. There has been really interesting work by Thomas Thwaite. He has this project called the Toaster Project. If anyone knows about that, it's really amazing work, where he goes and deconstructed all of the process by going into a mine, mining the materials, and then building a toaster from scratch. And of course, critical design that criticizes the world as it is today, without that dimension of time and future, and even technology, or might have something to do with technology. Why is this relevant? Because some authors have said that there's a crisis of imagination today. The way that we think about futures is colonized. You probably remember Matt Wyszynski in the morning talking about how Silicon Valley influences our perspective of what the future is, how they colonize our ways of thinking about the future, and themselves being colonized by media before, right? We're seeing Star Trek in a lot of things that are proposed and other fictions that are out there. So there's a crisis of imagination. And speculative design has since moved on into really interesting ways of showing how previously and historically marginalized communities can dream of better futures and can present new versions of themselves, and how they can empower themselves to dream about better ways, better presents, alternative presents, and hoping to create new things for the future. So Afrofuturism, indigenous futures, disabled or crip futures, and queer futures. there has been some tie with speculative design and transitional design in a way that the speculative practices and critical practice can work in the fuzzy front end of design, where they can help people to come together and think about the consequences of the artifact, instead of just focusing on the artifact, but focusing on the world building and the impact that those objects will have. In that sense, it can bring new perspectives on defuturing and creating alternatives if the representation is good. But also, we are more interested in this idea of participatory speculation, where going into communities and having direct engagement with them and designing with people. For this research that we are presenting today, we analyzed a lot of participatory speculation projects that were recently done, the activities that they went, the tools that they did. I'm missing here the years. I apologize for that, but in the paper, in the document, you have them there. And some of the what's interesting about the position where they were done, global north, global south, and also some of critical issues that were addressed. I just want to highlight two of those projects. So the first one is the Sankofa City, in the participatory design project in a community in Los Angeles. This was done in a way to empower this civical center, where the people got together, and it's a black community who had suffered from marginalization and in the past about real estate, and having to create a sense of belonging in that community, where they decided to, instead of letting technology dictate how it's going to be the future, so they created this vision. They came together through a series of workshops, and they determined, well, we're going to have self-driving cars in the future. What are the self-driving cars that we want to have? And they designed them themselves. So these are the ones that represent our values. So there were a lot of discovery around what are the values of this community, and this technology, augmented reality, virtual reality, and others, how that can make sense in their community. So taking the future into their own hands and doing work and presenting like that with mixed media, video, collages, a lot of things to materialize and embody the speculation with participation from the community. And the other example is an example that also has to do with time, because those what this speculation has is adding the dimension of time through other orders of design, so other orders of magnitude. So going from objects to systems, but adding the dimension of time to all of that, and adding complexity to that. And there you can see an object that's the materialization of time that's different than the other one that you're seeing there. So that represents future. This represents how a local community in Mexico, indigenous community, Huijarica, they view time. And it's an object that translates how Western perspective of time, the calendar that we have, Western, and also their view of time, that it's cyclical. So it also represents future, past. It represents a different view. So for speculation to be really healing, it needs to bring all of these perspectives together in a way that's not appropriating them, and also giving them a chance to explore. To explore their alternatives and their futures. Some of those projects, what they bring is this idea that when we were starting this research, there were some of the questions that we were done regarding exposing people to futures, to dystopias, to negative scenarios, how that's going to affect the participants, how that is going to bring to the participants, maybe they are going to traumatize the people that are going to be exposed to something that they might have never seen, and they might be exposed to that. What we saw on some of these works is that design has the power to heal the past traumas by creating these new visions, by increasing the sense of agency and self-worth. This was specific in one of those projects by Lichti and Kamunia, was done in Kenya with LGBTQI plus community, where it's a city, it's a place where gay people are discriminated. They are in families, they throw them out of their homes. They created this. They recur to prostitution, to drugs, and they did the work with this community and with gathering the young people from that context, that specific context, and they realized that by exposing them to the future and creating better alternatives, it actually increased their sense of agency about the future and the possibilities that they have to do, but also increased the sense of connection between others and also the self-worth. So this is interesting. And also another thing that came out of that is that design can by one hand do that, and that's the focus of this, of course, this research, but it also can do that, the other part. It can perpetuate the trauma and marginalization if the designers are not aware that they might be reinforcing sense of systems currently of finance and power that already exist, especially on the mainstream things of design. And if they are asking people to think about things that might be limiting to them or to their imagination. Of course, it can also be used by companies with some success. Some of those examples are by companies, but we prefer to use that in participation with communities. For this work, we also saw bigger projects like this one by Marcoussis, a small community in France, where they did this public discussion, a lot of months of public discussion, where they did many methods, role-playing, and they culminated with some videos about the future where everyone participated in those videos, and with the participatory budget market of the future, where anyone could vote in what they want to build in terms of reality. And it was also an interesting way to get everyone involved into a community project. But these are bigger ones. In our research, we want to do it more community-based. There are some interesting ways that speculation can bring us to think about to move out of physical functions and objects into a more sociological, psychological, and social context of it. It has to do with the embody of speculation. So if we go into more role-playing, storytelling, and involve people in more playful ways, it also bring that most involvement. What we also realize is that discussion on critical values is important. So this means that whenever we are building something, if we create a strategy to get everyone on board and understanding the values that are going to be embedded in the things that are going to be done afterwards, it actually improves the awareness and the impact and the understanding and consciousness of what is going to be done. So some critical tools that we analyze, and this year we did a lot of them, are missing some of those starting points of value, where people can just determine as the workshop is starting, can we agree on some of the things that we are doing? What is important for each one of us? There are some who have that, others that have not, and we're starting to do work around these tools as we move into the field. So this is all a back research to support that, and some of the tools that we are starting to make, and hopefully next year we're going to employ in some of those workshops. Right now we are engaged in trying to find some communities to work and to apply these tools, and yeah, I think that's it. Some of the references, and thanks for your time.
Muchas gracias. ¿Tenéis alguna pregunta?
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? No questions? So thank you.
Vale, pues continuamos.
So, we are going to continue now. We will give the floor to Sara Barbosa, Rethinking University Support Services for Anxiety Disorders through Participatory Service Design.
Thank you. This is a master project, and I'm starting with my motivation for do it. Mental health is a topic that has been growing in interest. As we know, students can be particularly susceptibility to mental health problems. As this period may be their first time living away from home and their families and dealing with multiple pressures of their own. So this gave me rise to the curiosity as a designer to act on something that can't be seen. In this case, anxiety disorder. For this, my research design was a qualitative and exploratory study. My approach was influenced by the philosophies of inclusive design and participatory design, taking a user-centered design. And the target audience for this research was university students with experience in anxiety. For this research, the context was made the research and understanding of what services were available in relation to anxiety at the university. In the first workshop, the focus here was exploring the problem, and we used the tool Synthesis Wall that was adopted as a collaborative way of sharing insights of the participants' experience. On the second workshop, the focus was envision solutions using the first workshop and the tools we used to co-create a persona, a user journey map. Here are some phrases from authors that I consider important for the decisions and approach taken, like the importance here was involving the participant through the process, and then I start the recruitment. The initial plan was to recruit between 4 and 6 participants who fall in inclusion criteria. Then you can read that in the article. After an initial explanation of the project and how it would be organized into stages, the workshops, 3 of the 8 potential participants did not continue their involvement, as they would not be able to attend consistently just because sitting difficult with transportation and associated costs. Another attempt was made to recruit participants and various approaches in networks, but was no further interest either. The research therefore continued with 4 participants, and on the day of the workshop, one didn't show up. So I continued with only 3 participants. In this part, I analyzed the service that existed at university and mapping them. There were 3 institutional entities offering mental health support through various mediums. 3 different. They don't communicate with each other by telephone helpline, or smartphone help, in-person appointments, paying for academic accommodations. The first workshop, the aim was to understand participants' experience of their anxiety disorder. So the first activity was icebreaker, designed as a way for the participants. And for that, I gave them 3 different post-it notes, and they choose an image for a magazine to cut them and to feel they represent them. For this, they will create a pseudonymization for themselves by which they will be identified through my investigation, maintaining their anonymity. This is the results of that activity. The first one is yellow with name touch, the second is orange with name colors, and the third is spiral with green. For the second part of the first workshop was to understand the situation in which a person found themselves in relation to their diagnosis, which could be formal or informal. This was doing by a blank paper with written by the post-its. The participants write down what they think about it and put on the paper. And then I create 3 different papers with the before, during, and after anxiety episode. They have the same questions there: the context, the how, the tools, and what to do after, during, and before an anxiety episode. On the second workshop, the aim of this was to reflect on existing university support services for students with anxiety disorder, and to envision how they could be improved, or how create a new service could be better respond to the students' needs. So, in adaptation to that, I create a persona. A persona was a fictional, as you know, and called Alice. This persona was created in the base by me, but then in the workshop, the participants were dressing her and building her identity by their own personalities. I don't know if you understand. So this is Alice. Alice was constructed. It's like a mirror of the participants of the workshop as their personal, individual experience. On the second part of the workshop, the journey map, which consists of construction, a proposal idea of the service that could be ideal for Alice. So, this time you can think about Alice during her exams, and she wants to be helped. So we co-created a journey map on a blank sheet of paper. It's a different journey map as we usually known. And the objective was to create something different and co-create the 3 services together and create something new. So, to conclusion, these workshops were designed and implemented with people who had recently been students at their university, was adopt and adapt participatory design and service design techniques. I developed a design toolkit that can be applied elsewhere for rapid, accessible design. The workshops result also like combating ignorance and stigma, like the participants mentioned that asking for help is a particularly complicated step to take. A communication, none of the workshop's participants had previously used or had any knowledge about existing university services that could support them. Integrated service solutions, although the university provides various forms of support, 3 different services, the participants express a clear preference for a single consolidated service that could be accessed through a choice of accessible touchpoints. Although recognize that this work is not without these limitations. The number of participants was small, but we believe that was sufficient to demonstrate a rapid and effective approach to rethinking university mental support services with their intended users. The feedback for the university was positive for both workshops by the participants, and in conclusion to all of this, this paper offered a tried and tested user-centered design process that can be applied to similar projects in future.
Muchas gracias. ¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta? ¿No?
Questions?
Vale, pues continuamos.
So we are going to continue now with the rethinking of the university services to support anxiety disorders. No, I think that's not the correct name. It's the Executive Education Strategic Cooperation in the Interactive Digital Design Field. Insights from the industry.
Strategic cooperation in the interactive digital design field, and I'm presenting you some insights from the industry. So, first of all, I'm related to this research because I'm coordinating some executive education courses as well. So, in the past 10 years, more or so, I've been coordinating web design courses. I've been coordinating interaction design courses that is related to the interactive digital field, and came across that it needed some insights from the industry and tried to solve some issues that I found during this 10-year period. Okay, so technically, just giving you a brief introduction about executive education, about interactive digital design, and of course the needs for the strategic cooperation. From the literature review that I able to pursue on this research, it was found that, well, it is a very important field that bridges the gap between higher education, business, and society. Also, that executive education is a strategic tool for developing technical and leadership skills, and of course, acting as a key agent for change. Also, it was found that executive education has been facing several challenges, not just from nowadays, but from this 10-year period. There also is a recognizable gap in skill development, such as in skill acquisition and skill transfer. From the interactive digital design, well, challenges also have been found, not just in curricular development, but also into technical, technological, economical, and of course, societal changes during this time period. Okay, so challenges also in the C-level positions was found in the industry, basically in organizations that have design in their own organizations. And of course, there are skills that are needed and needed for the design management, and leadership in design was also identified. So it's important to recognize that that's needed to be closer and more in-depth insight in how the relation and cooperation between companies and industry can, of course, improve curricular design. And was found that there's a lack of studies in this area, specific in the design digital field, and the strategic cooperation between the creative industry sector and the academy approach. So the main question is how to better understand this field and how to encourage to a more efficient academia-business cooperation. So the methodology was trying to gather the insights that could be more useful to this relationship at YAD. So we encountered and developed insights from the creative industry private sector. It was a lot of companies. So we tried to narrow down, and we organized them in seniority, internationalization, giving some outputs, considering the relevance and recognition, and of course, being Portuguese founded or merged. So in the end, we sampled to 6 key companies. And of course, one public service sector that was also identified that gathers over 459 companies and a lot of workers in 2022. So the academy perspective was also considered for this study. So faculty deans, design courses coordinators, research unit coordinators, and executive education directors that were involved in some kind of decision-making of this study. So after those key agents were identified, we then pursued and tried to design some semi-structured interviews that better aim to understand the insights of this field. So they were aiming to identify challenges, to recognize the key capabilities, and preview relevant content that may enable the enhancement of curricular design of executive education courses at YAD. So we have found that 6 companies, the Common, Edigma, Full 6, Imaginary Cloud, Tangible, and iDreams Global, that were in somehow related to YAD, and of course that could bring some added value to this research. Also, the Agency for Administrative Modernization, that is, of course, one of the agencies that are trying to create some modernization in UX research for the public sector. What was found is that summing the sample, most of the public and company sectors, relevant sectors, were design, marketing, and technology, and the most relevant fields was interaction design, research, development, and UX, UI. As you can see, 51% of is design, 15% technology, and 25% it's marketing. The most relevant company and organizations' fields of activity, mainly interaction design, research, and UX, UI, and development, as stated before. So afterwards, we pursued with some interviews to the stakeholders, and those were semi-structured interviews that had 6 goals: perceiving the challenges in these 10-year periods from 2012 to 2020, try to understand if COVID-19 pandemic brought any significant changes for this field, and try to identify challenges in the interactive digital design field, current and future. Also recognize what are the key capabilities of the professional in this area, and framing the training offer at IAD, also trying to understand from the perspective of a contributor, intermediate, or executive professional, and preview some relevant content that this field may, of course, be demanding and present for the near future, for the present and near future. So, summing up, the protocol was based on 3 central blocks. The first one was trying to understand the evolution of the interactive digital design field of pre-pandemics, during COVID-19 pandemics, current and future time. The second block, to the professional abilities and skills. The third block, the training content for the field. Afterwards, the interview ended with the open question and, of course, the acknowledgements and some optional socio-demographical questionnaire. So the findings is still work in progress. Nevertheless, we already have some insights that I want to share. So it was stated on the interviews that there were two main axes on this field up to 2020, based on engineering and technology. First of all, the increasing complexity of technology, the smartphones, everything that brought up a more complex usage of systems. In the other end, the user wants more easy of use, so there's kind of paradoxical phenomenon. So designers are also being required to constantly update and learn. Also, more interaction possibilities. I was stating before the smartphone, it's one example that was stated. Well, in 10-year period, the smartphone evolved a lot. And also, it was also stated from this time period that it's a lack of consensus of the best design and usability practice, and this is becoming more and more evident. During this 10-year period, the interactive design field matured. Not sure if you remember, there was in the web design the Flash, HTML, everything was a little bit primarily. And then, of course, the evolution goes through concepts as well and migrating more to design thinking, more to user experience, more to user interface design, user psychology, and other disciplines that entered in this realm. Also, the public sector, digital services also has matured. So there was a gap between organizations, communications, and in this way, the Agency for Modernization intervened and developed a lot of strategies to overtake these challenges. During the pandemics, the COVID-19, one of the things that was interesting to state, it was that realized that was an incremental innovation, and this was a catalyst for change. It sped up the digital acceleration that was being brought up until that moment, and it was very, very fast at this moment. So designers had to quickly adapt. That was one of the findings as well, and increasingly more relevant, effective, and accessible digital experiences. Also, in the work process, this was also very impacted, so collaboration and communication also have become a challenge, and some of the working process already been taking place were shredding any kind of myths that with the remote process, everything that came along with that kind of working manner of working. Also the intersection of different digital technologies and also the need to be up to date to acquire different knowledge. More recently, the generative artificial intelligence, as designers now have the challenge of questioning processes and methodologies, and of course the design ethics that facing this new reality they need to overcome. So there's a paradigm shift that was also stated, the shift from user-centric to a more global planet-centric design. Also the design of digital services need to incorporate emerging technologies, as artificial intelligence has stated before, and the metaverse. One of the challenges that was also brought up was the design for a new generation of digital natives that broadly they are used to this immediacy that everything needs to be quick and now and very, very fast. From the professional profile, it was found that it is expected, the industry expected that the professional be a full-stack professional with proficiency both in skills, knowledge, and strategic thinking. Also, autonomy and leadership skills are one of those two that are more evidence on the research. And from the career progression perspective, the ability to add value and multidisciplinary skills is also appreciated. From the content point of view, there is a lack in C-level and D-level profile. So the type of training that focused more on leadership and operational strategy was suggested in this study. For a contributor profile, technical skills, user research, usability, and interface design principles were mentioned. For a C-level, some of the contents may include management, decision-making, leadership, team operation, design strategy, innovation, among others, that are in the basis of the strategic leadership and kind of emerging technologies that come upon. So transversally, adapting to new technologies and changes in society is inevitable, and some of the disciplines are design ethics, design system, artificial intelligence, accessibility, virtual reality, and augmented reality. So this is kind of the contents that are needed, or the industry kind of needs at this moment in these companies that were taking the sample. At the end, and this was one of the concerns of the study, there was a critique because most of the courses are aimed at operatives and not at leaders. And one of the reasons is that we are not getting that kind of profile is because they are not very appealing for a C-level or a D-level profile. So courses in leadership at this specific field could be a proposal, just like creative team leadership or digital design project management. This could be some kind of a new approach to this kind of lack of executive education. Thank you.
Gracias. ¿Tenéis alguna pregunta,
Are there any
comentario?
questions or comments here? All right, then thank you.
La última, sí.
Vale, pues ahora seguimos con...
So we're going to continue with Tiago Gassner. Optimizing cyclist interfaces for sustainable urban mobility, a study on bike computers and information delivery.
Everybody, my name is Tiago Gassner. I'm from PUC, Brazil. And today I'm going to talk about optimizing cyclist interfaces for sustainable urban mobility. This is a research based on my first year on my master's degree. So just to contextualize the scenario, in Brazil, over the past 3 years, we had a growth in the use of bicycles in urban centers, especially during the pandemic, where cities implemented temporary bike lanes that allowed people who wanted to avoid mass transit in crowded spaces and allow them to travel across the city more safely. And with this, the use of bicycles stayed as an actual mode of transportation in Brazilian cities. In Brazil, a bicycle is defined as a human-powered vehicle with two wheels, not similar to motorcycles and mopeds and motor scooters. And with the growth of these human-powered bicycles, we also saw a growth of electric bicycles and electric modes of transport. And these generated a lot of conflicts in societal levels, in legislations, that people who use the electric mopeds saw them as a bicycle user and thought that they could ride on bike lanes and bike infrastructure. And this generated this conflict in people's mind. And to regulate this, Brazil stated and regulated and equated electric models to mopeds. So it was not seen as a bicycle and was seen as a moped. And this brought forth another issue that people who use bikes, electric bikes, saw them as a bicycle user, not as a moped user. And to fix this societal clash that was happening, the government implemented this new resolution that revoked the previous one and reclassified electric bikes as a regular regular bike, and so they could traffic on bike lanes and bike infrastructure. And with this regulation, the law also stated artifacts that was necessary to the bikes, such as speed regulators that limit the speed of the electric bicycles. And these regulators could be on an application on a smartphone or as a digital device placed on the bike. And this is the focus of this research, that are bike computers. And the bike computers can be found on electric bikes, as I'm talking, with a fixed location that is factory installed, as well as a detachable device, such as an application or a detachable separate system. And bike computers can also be found on performance bicycles that related to the cyclist, more information to the cyclist instead of the bicycle itself. And we sought to analyze these systems through two aspects. The first one was the information design, that we looked to Peterson to find tools to help us analyze these systems and to understand how this information spoke to the cyclist itself. And Peterson talks about information design as its main objective of simplicity in communication. And we sought his tools, the best that related to our analysis was text, symbols, layout, and color, to help us have this first view of these devices and to understand how this information was already in these artifacts. The second system that we used was the system usability scale. That its main objectives are focused on effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction. And we saw the system usability scale as a system to understand how the cyclist views this information and how these interactions relates to this system in general. We analyzed eight bike computers in total, with three main manufacturers that are that are in Brazil. And to help us organize this information, we construct this table that we categorize the brand, model, and year, and the information, the quantity of information that was displayed on the screen, and the number of screens that was available in the system. And this helps us understand how these interfaces talk to the user before understand how the user interacts with the system. And then we organize the system usability scale questions to interview some volunteers to help understand how this first view of this analysis would work in future implementations. Just to exemplify this this method that we used, this system is a lab by computer that it's really popular in our university, so it was really easy to get access to it. This is the first and only screen, so when the cyclists turn on the bike, this information comes up, and when traveling, it doesn't have many other options to change or to view. And the first thing that we noticed with the Peterson information design analysis, we saw the main information that was focused on the system was the speed and the battery level. One thing that we noticed with the color, it's as the system uses a VFD screen, it doesn't have many options, so it only has black for the text and white for the background. So when you have some warning signs or some low battery levels, you don't have many colors to help the cyclist identify this information during the ride. Then we interview some people to evaluate the system based on the system usability scale, and this was just one example of one of the respondents. Our preliminary results show that the scenario of bike computers in Brazil, it's really young, it's growing, and we saw this focus on information that was provided to the cyclist is important to understand how the cyclist can interact with the system and understand how is the scenario that the cyclist is using the bike. If it's a road user that goes to work, if it's a trail, some performance bikes have specific demands for specific cyclists, and this information needs to align with the demands of the cyclist itself. And this relationship allows us to understand that electric bicycles needed to help the cyclists understand how the bicycles communicate with the cyclists and help attenuate some communication issues that can happen between electric bike and the cyclist itself. As I said, this was only a preliminary version of the proposed analysis, and based on this, we saw that the Peterson analysis was help us understand this scenario at first, but refining this approach and refining the system usability scale approach is better to better understand how the cyclists understand this information and how this information relates to the cyclist itself. After analyzing the bike computers, we saw that contextualizing this scenario that is really young in Brazil, it's necessary to help the voluntary respondents to understand how information differs from one device to another device, from a rental bike to a personal bike. And this would help better to situate the respondent in this scenario. And to finish things, reformulate the systems ability scale to attend the bicomputer specific demands would help understand how the user interacts with the system, as some devices have a lot of difference from one device to another, and help these questions better understand how the cyclist interacts with it. And just to finish, I would like to thank the Brazilian National Council for Scientific and Technological Development, CAPES, and my university, PUC, for the financial support. Thank you.
Gracias. ¿Tenéis alguna pregunta, algún comentario que hacer?
Or questions regarding this last paper? So thank you, all the authors, all the researchers, and those ones involved in this conference. Thank you for your assistance. Tomorrow we will start with Elena Freitas. It's a conference that will start at 9:30 through 11:30. After the morning break, we will continue with the presentations, and there will be some workshops and seminar carried out afterwards in the afternoon. And from 5 o'clock, we will remind you later, there will be another session of regarding a European project that is related to craftsmanship and design, with various experts from the world, from international, and there will be more colleagues from Transparencias joining us. So if you think that today was intense and it was dense, tomorrow will be better, even better for networking and exchanging opinions and expertise from all parts of the world. I hope you enjoy our wines, walk and sleep well, because tomorrow we'll have another intense, another day. So thank you very much for the day that we spent together.